self-study. Maybe you have some questions about last week, or just things you came across during the weekdays, or the subjects of last week, the discussions of last week start settling down and you have realizations or maybe doubts, questions. Yeah, let's say it again. Yes, Chitta is a memory. Fritta? Fritti. Yoga Chitta Fritti Niroda. Fritti is an impression in your memory. So, for example, you have had a bad experience in the past. Maybe as a child you were teased, or you had a relationship with a man that became a disaster. Maybe he treated you very bad. So you have memories about that. Yeah? But you have put those memories away. So you just live your life, but while you are living your life and you are doing your things, you go to work, you meet your colleagues, you have new relationships with other people, there is something strange about you. There is some kind of behavior, but you don't know, you are unaware of that. You just do without being aware. That behavior is the result of what happened in the past. But you are not aware of that. Now something comes along in your life, maybe you watch a TV program, or somebody says something to you, somebody makes a remark to you, and suddenly that pain from the past comes back. Yeah, that is a feeling. That is a memory that is being awakened as the result of some other influence. As long as the memory is sleeping, it is called the samskara. What happens with the practice of yoga is that slowly but certainly you wake up and you become very aware of how you function, why you do what you do, what is triggering your reactions, what is causing the kind of behavior that every time brings you in trouble. And when you learn about that, when you become aware of that, you start slowly taking control of your life. Because if you know how it works, and if you understand how you function, if you understand why you do what you do, when you say ugly things to people, or when every time you have a quarrel with friends, if you understand why that is happening, then you can stop it. As long as you don't become aware of that, it will just continue. It will continue for the rest of your life if you don't take care of that. That is self-study also. That is related to today's subject. That is self-study also. Which self-study is not something that you say, okay, today I'm going to practice self-study. I'm going to sit down and study myself. Or the self. Self-study is actually something that occurs naturally. Because to practice yoga, you stand still every time, physically. And standing still physically is only possible with mind control, concentration. And interesting thing that occurs with people who do that is they automatically turn their attention inwards. Automatically they start studying themselves, their mind, the way they trying to understand the past. If you understand the past, you understand who you are and why you do what you do. That is something that happens naturally, almost automatically, as a result of yoga practice. The condition is, of course, that yoga is practiced in the original way, always pursuing sattva, which you do by standing still. You understand that? So yoga chitta vritti nirodha means basically, as a result of your self-study also, to learn to control your tendencies. You understand tendency? Tendency is an automatic reaction. You don't think, you just react. And later you say, oh, shoot, I've been so stupid again. I wish I would not have said that. I wish I would not have done that. I wish I would have done this differently. Those tendencies are part of us, and it's only possible to stop them if we become aware of them, if we understand why they are being triggered. And then next time when we are in the same situation, we already feel it coming. We feel the situation is developing into something that will trigger something we don't like. So then you say, stop. I do not let this happen this time. It's not that simple. You will make that mistake again a couple of times, but you do it being aware of it, and then you become a master of the situation. And that in the end is mastership. Mastership means that you are in control. And yoga leads to that control more and more. And every time, if you continue to practice, every time you will bring it to another level, to a higher level. Every time when you think you are done, you realize that there is so much more work still to be done. You're never done actually, you're never finished. Can you imagine what an incredible peace this will bring to your life if you are not disturbed anymore by the things that always used to disturb you so much? Just because you avoid the natural conflicts that occur as a result of your conditioning. You become a master over your reactions, you become a master over your tendencies. So,
when I do something,
yeah.
I have to realize how am I thinking about all the time. When I add something,
For example, you spend some time with your friends, and your friend is telling you something that you don't like. Then every time when your friend tells you something that you don't like, you walk away. For example. Why? Because maybe it reminds you of something, of a previous relationship you had, or something in your childhood when friends were teasing you or treating you bad. So that is many years ago, but now in the current time, in the present, somebody can push your button by saying something that you don't like. That is not the intention of that person, but you can't help it because he pushes a button. He doesn't know. Pushes a button, then something inside you happens, and you get angry, or you walk away, or you slam the door. So it is good to study that and to try to become aware of that. And so next time when it happens, you feel it happening inside you. And then you say, hey, I know this, I recognize this. Let's not let it happen. Today I will control this because it is not correct. Because the past is the past and the present is the present. That's all a play. And if you have a friend who understands that, then you can do it with a smile. So you say, oh, I was so foolish again. You just smile. But next time you try to do better. I will use the word play many times during this course because playing is the most important in all of your development. Playing like a child, because that is experimenting. As adults, we are full of blockages. So every time we feel something, we just ignore it. We cut it off at the root and we just ignore it. Children do not have those blockages yet. They do not have inhibitions yet. So when they see a butterfly, they say, oh, butterfly, and they run and they follow the butterfly that is going like that. And then suddenly they see something crawling on the floor. And, oh, as adults, you just see and you just turn away. It's nothing anymore, and nothing can impress us anymore, and there is no joy and ecstasy anymore. Look at children. Children are the most wonderful yogis that you have. Problem is, they are not masters, they have no control, so they need adults to take control of them, but with a very free hand. When we practice concentration on nada, we use our intellect to control nada. Every time, no, we use the intellect to control the mind. The mind and the intellect are two different things in yoga. So I know that now you think, what the hell is he talking about? The mind and the intellect, they are two different entities. I will explain later how. The mind is pumping out a lot of thoughts, uncontrolled. Intellect is the one who can be aware of that and says, hey, stop it. As an adult, we are talking about Ajna Chakra, the head, the command center. If you read the file about Ajna, the command center. As an adult, as a developed adult, you have that ability to take control by using the intellect. A child doesn't have that, and a dog doesn't have that either. So as an owner of a dog, or as a mom or dad of a child, you are the child's Ajna Chakra control mechanism. As an adult, we have to do that ourselves. We will discuss Ajna Chakra next week, I think. No? Michelle?
Yeah, to go back to stopping these patterns from coming up,
Yeah.
you're controlling for yourself.
Yeah.
After you get to a point of being able to sense when patterns arise,
Yeah.
I'm gonna react to this. So does that action kind of diminish that tendency over time, or is it a process of that's always gonna be there and you just have to get better at controlling it?
It's always going to be there, but its strength will diminish with your awareness of it. But at unguarded moments, it can always stick up its head again.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So in your case with your friend, this situation that the example, your
Yeah.
friend does something that makes you angry, and then
Yeah.
you said the better way is to play. Would I be mistaken if I to assume that we should be better freely release our anger in that situation?
No, absolutely not. On the contrary.
But
if it happens,
blockage,
yeah, if that anger comes out, in usual situations, we become very angry, and then we have to deal with the damage that we have caused. Because always when you have an eruption of emotion, always leads to undesirable reactions. uncontrollable. Then later, you say to yourself, when the dust has settled down, you say to yourself, oh my God, I've been so stupid. I wish I would not have said that. I wish I would not have done that. But rather than castigating ourselves, rather than flogging ourselves, in being, how do you say that? Being so miserable about our stupid reaction, it is better to just smile at your foolishness to let it happen again and try to do better next time. That keeps your energy flowing. While if you destroy yourself over making a mistake, which many people do, every time you make a mistake, oh, you cringe and you totally feel so stupid and so terrible. You cause another blockage. And of course, you try to repair the damage. If you did wrong, then you say, I'm sorry. But for the rest, it's done. To smile at your foolishness, to have lost control again, try to make up for the damage if that is possible at all. If not, then you have to learn a very important lesson out of it at the loss of some maybe valuable friendship. That is also possible. But most important is that you learn a lesson from it for the future. Yoga is a control of life, but it is not oppression. That is the opposite. It is oppression that we have to get rid of because that causes blockages in our energy circulation. But just venting your emotions as they come, which many people think is healthy, that causes so much damage that we have to try to avoid it. Not by oppressing it, but first of all by being aware of it. When you are aware of it, then you can slowly but certainly start the process of bringing it under control. That's the wise approach. That is the wise person approach. And the past is the past. You know, when I started the whole process, practicing yoga, becoming aware of everything, there were many things of the past that really bothered me day and night. And that process continued for many years, and I'm at the point where I arrived at the point at a certain stage in that whole process that I'm actually grateful for all those things that happened. Why? Because it made me who I am, and it brought out good things in me. The rest is all ego. That you feel self-pity because your brother treated you bad, or your friend treated you bad, or whatever we consider as a bad experience, that is because of ego, because of self-pity, and that is not constructive at all. Make sense a little bit? And one thing we have to learn to do is to become our own best friend. Many people, most of us, are very skillful at chopping themselves down. You understand what I mean by that? Let other people do that. There are many people who will be glad to do that for you. But stop doing that yourself. You have to start respecting yourself and become constructive with the criticisms that you have about yourself. Most people are their own worst criticizer.
Critic.
Yes, critic. Thank you. Most people are their own worst critic. You have to stop doing that. Just irrational. If you do wrong, okay, then you try to make that up and you try to learn from it, because that is why you do it. And just go on living your life and try to be playful in that sense also. People are too serious and too heavy in everything. And that blocks energy, and that makes people sick in the end. Self-study. And you see all the yamas that we have learned come back in the principle of self-study. In fact, all 10 of those principles are entwined with each other. But in self-study, you see that you have to be non-violent. You see that you have to be truthful, that you honestly look at yourself and not delude yourself with a nice picture, or the other side of the coin, that you have a very unreasonably negative picture of yourself. You just have to look honestly. And if praise is deserved, then you have to also be able to praise yourself. And the other side of the coin then is, of course, that if criticism is deserved, then you have to be open and willing to give that to yourself. Without judgment, without false pretensions. Just simple and direct. Non-stealing also comes back in this process, because avoiding the lessons that you can learn from self-study, avoiding because you are scared to see the reality of yourself, many people are, that is denying yourself opportunity to grow, to progress. That is theft. Theft from yourself. You commit theft from yourself. Now, chastity comes in a little bit different way, but that is certainly something that needs to be studied also in ourselves. And we have non-desire, which, when you observe yourself when you are full of desire, which observation is kind of self-study, you observe yourself when you're full of desire, you have to determine for yourself whether your desire is reasonable or not. And desire can lead to very terrible disease if desire lives in you for a long time. And because it doesn't manifest, because you're unable to manifest an unreasonable desire, for example, but you're full of it, obsession almost, you kill yourself. The desire is frustrated, and as a result, your energy circulation is frustrated, so it will express itself in a disease. If you give this some thought, the next time when you talk with people who are sick, you will look at them with different eyes, and you will be able eventually to detect what it is that made them sick. Because disease does not suddenly strike people, it is something that builds up over years, and is the result of frustration of the energy circulation. For this reason, every yoga book, serious yoga book that you read, the traditional yoga books, the Holy Scriptures, they all talk about you never becoming sick anymore if you practice yoga. They all talk about incredible health, fountain of youth, all these kind of concepts. It is true, and it is the result of your energy circulation being restored. And how do you do that? Well, you have to do all these kind of difficult things for it. Starting with the yamas and the niyamas and trying to understand them, trying to fit them into your life, not letting them be just a theoretical concept, but apply them to yourself, apply them to your daily life. Then you have the exercises that will give you larger amounts of energy, but not just larger amounts of energy, but also more harmonious. And additionally, you have a lot of things to study, like we do. And along the way, studying, you also continue exercising, and your exercise will become more and more refined. Understand the concept of that study, September?
I have a question. Like, what if your job doesn't really align with Yama's or Niyama's? Like, it causes you to lie or to be vibrant or something like that?
What was the first sentence?
What if your job does not
Would it be
align?
your job?
Look at your job.
Job, like your career. Yes.
Like if you're a lawyer,
Yeah.
How does that affect your studies? Can you
Okay.
separate out?
Well, very good example, lawyers. Look at the news that you read. If you're close, please close the window. Look at the news articles that we read in the newspaper. And when a lawyer lies, it is very obvious. And then look what you feel inside when that lawyer is lying. And that lawyer maybe gets his way, cheating the justice system with his lies, because nobody, although his lies are obvious, people can easily see that they are obvious lies, but they are not capable of defeating him on his lies. Can you be proud of that? As a sensitive human being, can you be proud of such cheating? I could never do that. Maybe that has been one of my problems throughout the years, but it is your strongest point actually. And that lawyer who is honest and defeats the justice system on valid arguments, and you read about that and you feel respect. You feel admiration for such a person. That is the big difference. So whatever job you have, politician or lawyer, jobs where lying could bring you far in a material way, make a difference by being honest.
What if the lying is done to protect people?
Then you have the concept of a white lie. It is not for nothing that it is called a white lie. But a white lie is only a white lie if it doesn't cause additional damage. Because if you protect somebody at the cost of damaging other people, then it's not a white lie anymore. Then you are not being honest as a lawyer or whoever you are, protecting somebody at the cost of somebody else. And to handle this, you always have to consult with your conscience. Follow your feeling. And if you come to the conclusion that you have to lie, thinking that it's a white lie, but eventually you come to the conclusion that you were wrong, then you learn a lesson from that. That's how you become wise. No, there is no excuse for lying. Not even if you're a lawyer. People do not respect you if you lie, even if you are very successful and you are a millionaire because of your lies. But of course, people who need your assistance when they have to deal with the law, of course they will admire you because they feel that you can help them. But it's only because of the lying. But that respect is not real. Can you feel this a little bit? I wake up in the morning, and well, these days I don't look in the mirror anymore because I have nothing to look for, but you have to be able to look yourself straight in the eyes. And even though you made $1 million out of lying to people, or lying to the court, you made $1 million out of it. I don't think you can be proud. You can be proud of the $1 million, but no self-respect, no dignity in that at all.
What if you make decisions that hurt people, like juries, who send people to,
Like
jury? Like
jury.
Yeah, or a judge. What about that?
Yeah, that is a very specialized job. Juries, juries are laymen. I'm not really in favor of a jury system. A judge is a person who needs to write that over. No, I'm serious. A judge needs royal qualities, like a king. Why? Because you need to stand above everything, and always judge fairly. Your judgment should be the same, whether there is a rich merchant standing before you, or somebody who lives under the bridges. Your judgment should be based upon the issue at hand and not based upon the appearance of the person. And I think in Europe and America, not all, most judges are very thoughtful about this. They are they have very high moral standards, at least in judging people. And I think they are like yogis also. They have to constantly consult with what is motivating them. And if they feel that purity is lacking, they will go against their initial wish to judge, and they will make a more balanced judgment. That is an art.
Well, what if their judgment sends people to die, like capital punishment?
That I am against capital punishment. Simply because of that, because it is irreversible. No matter how bad people have behaved, if there is the slightest possibility, even if it is only 0.0%, that the person is innocent, it is just not justifiable. And there is something else here. We have talked about non-violence. It doesn't matter how you kill. So if you kill out of the name of the law, it is still killing. So that makes you even worse than the killer that you are condemning. Because most murders are committed under a heavy emotional weight, an explosion of I've seen killers. I've seen them, and they look like your neighbor. They look like the people you work with, the people you come across in the subway station. They're just normal people. They were most of the time driven in an incredible explosion of emotion to hurt somebody. And the calculated judgment to have somebody killed, I think, is worse than a passionate killing. So I think the system who condemns people to death is worse than the actual killer. That's my personal opinion. Is that related to this? Yeah? Yeah. Michelle?
Just wanted to see if you had any thoughts on, well, in mostly American culture, like pop culture, celebrities or actors, there are certain individuals that kind of have this self-awareness, but it's this sort of self-deprecating self-awareness, like Woody Allen, for example, a comedian that's always very cautious about what I just said, or what did I just do, or what did this happen, what I just said has this kind of implication, and so that's a kind of self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
And how does that sort of,
What does self-deprecating mean?
like,
Put yourself down.
yeah,
You make fun of yourself.
It's kind of laughing at yourself.
It's definitely violent saying to yourself, yeah.
But
I
it's
would
in,
say.
yeah, it's kind of in the service of making light. Some people, it depends how you use it too. People can be, as it's,
Comedy?
yeah, as a comedy, like you're making fun of yourself for the enjoyment of others, but
That, you know, that is an art in itself too. If you can do that, it means that you are able to deal with your ego.
maybe there's another aspect that you're trying to get at that has a darker side or something that's not so.
yeah, where you just become too hyper, it's like neurotic. You're very, you're just hyper aware of yourself and what you're saying and what you're doing, and you kind of fall into this own sort of your own trappings of thinking about what you're doing and saying all the time.
Like you're always second guessing yourself.
Yeah,
Like you say something and then you're like, oh my god, what did Brian think about that? Or
yeah.
something like that.
That is called doubt. And doubt. Hey, you got something against me? Talking about me? No, doubt is really devastating. And especially when that is applied to yourself. A couple of lessons ago, there was in one of the handouts, it said, people who doubt are suffering. And that is true. Don't doubt. One of the qualities that you see in real yogis is that they don't doubt. They are always convinced of themselves. But when they are wrong, then they will very easily admit that. But for the rest, you give everything the benefit of the doubt. Self-deprecation, if you do it in a way that you destruct yourself, and you constantly destroy your self-esteem and your self-respect, that of course is totally wrong. But comedy and your ability to mock yourself, that is healthy. That means that you are able to deal with your ego. Comedy, why do people love comedy? Because it confronts you with yourself and your foolishness, and that is wonderful. In that respect, I love to watch the comedies on the BBC. Because the British, I think, have invented comedy. Wonderful. If you see also in America also, when President Bush was president, every day there were programs on TV where he was made ridiculous. Yes, okay, but that is possible, and that is accepted. But do that in Pakistan, and you will be killed. Do that in Korea, you will be killed. If not by the government, then there will be other people who will hack your email, and that's because of ego. In Europe and America and other places, it is possible to do those kind of things. You make the president and other people, you make them ridiculous, and there is nobody who will keep you from doing that. And it's marvelous, And if you laugh, and laughing is so liberating. It leads to self-reflection also.
Comedy is good because it's making light of the situation, but there's also a direct correlation between comedians and depression.
Okay, that is because, no, that is not just with comedians, that is with all artists. Haven't I told you that an artist is kind of a yogi? But he is just missing the tools that a yogi has. What are we talking about is supersensitive beings. People who are supersensitive have a tendency towards making art. They are very good at expressing their feelings, so they can either sing a song about it, or compose a very nice melody, or make a painting. Just put into matter what they feel. sensitive. A yogi is super sensitive too, but the yogi learns to control because he knows that he can destroy himself. And you see with many artists, depression, alcohol, drug abuse, very tragic relationships very often, very, very unstable. So, and what you see, if you look at there are some artists who have that all under control. Picasso was one of them. Picasso became very old. There are very few tragedies. If you look at his history, at his life, and his art has become genial art, to very high level and very expensive. While most other artists, their art is good, special, but their lives totally unstable, and very often they die at a very young age because they have no control. Can you recognize this a little bit? Do you see this a little bit?
There are a lot of artists who also say that without that kind of depression, without that shadow side to their personality, that they can't create, that they don't have a Buddhist.
Absolutely true. You will never lose that tendency. But rather than being subject to that depression all the time, as a yogi, you learn what you can do to soften the impact of it.
So you learn to live with it.
No, you learn to deal with it. Learn to live with it is passive. Learning to deal with it is active. You take charge. That is what a yogi does. I'm talking about yogis, but there are people who do this naturally. But you take charge. Just if you are not a yogi, if you are dealing with those kind of situations in your life, there is just a day in some people's lives that you say, I don't accept this anymore. What am I going to do to not let this just overwhelm me every time? And so you try to figure out what to do. Yoga is a very good tool because it makes you very aware of what you do, how you do it. You become very conscious of all your aspects, eventually even leading to you becoming aware of your essence. And if you know all that, then you can manipulate that actually at will. That is not easy, but you gain upper hand rather than just being subject to your moods and your emotions, and there's a black and white picture in that. You start taking charge. And although I've never been an artist, I've always been super sensitive, and it took decades for me to understand that. But as a child, I was always different. I come from a big family, and I always thought I was the black sheep of the family. And that made me sad as a child. I was different. I didn't know why. Now I know why. It is because I was much more sensitive than my siblings. But as a child, you don't understand that people are different. So you think everybody functions the same as you do. But they didn't, and I didn't. So you start thinking that there is something wrong with you. But I changed my mind. Because I realized that I'm the white sheep and they were the black sheep. That's not fair. But it means that I started to understand that there was nothing wrong with me. I was just having qualities that they didn't have. And one of them was certainly my super sensitivity. And although I've never been an artist, I have other ways to express that, like teaching yoga, for example.
My question, just thinking about all these like really miraculous benefits of yoga, like freedom from sickness, like captain of youth, clairvoyance.
Yeah.
Why do you think it is that culture didn't develop with yoga as a more central part of like the guiding force through society or through culture? It's so ancient. Why? I mean, it seems like it's kind of unknown.
What is unknown?
Yoga practice.
No. You have to look. time that we live in is unprecedented in the history of the earth. 200 years ago, 90% of the people didn't get education. People were not mental. We are now very mentally focused, the age that we live in. That is a good thing, but it does disconnect us with our deeper essence. It does disconnect us from nature, from the energies that are all around us. Of course, in the past, people were superstitious. So, like a dog, when it is thundering, we were scared. Maybe we thought that it was God, because we have seen. Dogs think that disaster is going to happen, so they want to hide, they want to run away. But people in the past were much more connected. They were much more intuitive. In a simple way, of course, because they were not educated. But what we do is, with the education that we have, and the mental orientation that we have, and the intellect that we have developed as a result of that, including emancipation, development intellectually, we now try to combine that with the sensitivity of yoga, going back to that intuitive living, soul consciousness, but now combined with intellect. And then you have a very strong force. So what yoga offered me, to come back to what I just explained, I have for many, many years struggled to gain control. And I always got frustrated. And if I then would sit down and ask myself, why am I becoming frustrated all the time? It was because of that sensitivity and the lack of control. And the answer was yoga. And I had to put myself back on that path again and again. It's been a big struggle. How did I solve the problem? Focus on what is important. And do not give up anymore. Because that was the biggest problem. As a result of your sensitivity, you get distracted. For example, you start studying something, it can be yoga, you start studying yoga, but as a result of your sensitivity, you become distracted and maybe you start going to a bar several times a week or so, drinking beer. You should be in the yoga school, but because of your emotional instability, and you see this with artists all the time, so you see this with all super-sensitive beings, they need something to deal with that instability. And yoga, of course, is something that you have to work hard. You have to slowly but certainly adopt discipline, but it is very constructive and it will take away that frustration, that everlasting frustration. In my case, that frustration led me to think for several times during my life, I don't want to live anymore. It's not going anywhere, and every time I lose control, and every time I lose my way, and I'm tired of it, I don't want to live like this. But the answer is actually to go deeper into it and focus on that, what is really important for you. If it is your work, then focus on that and expand it. Study more, gain more insight in the work that you are doing. If it is your hobby, or if it is yoga, then focus on that and work that out and expand it. And whatever it is, but do not give up anymore. The moment that I vowed to myself never to give up anymore, I started systematically finishing everything that I started in the past and every time gave up. And that is that carries such an incredible power in it. That's why I don't know if I mentioned it in this class, but there are people who get older and they say, I wish I was 18 again. Well, I hope I will never be like I was when I was 18. I never want to go back to that time. Because that is inherently connected to instability. Not knowing who you are, where you are going in life, not knowing what you want, etc. I would never want to be 18. I would never want to be 23 or 26 anymore. Leave alone 18 or 16, horrible.
it's kind of like a feeling of doubt when, you feel like you're kind of swimming against, the stream.
Yeah.
And if we have these feelings of doubt, I think it's a horrible feeling, but like how, if you feel it,
Yeah.
and often, and how do we manage it, or how do we defeat it?
You have to be rational. Doubt arises because there is something in you telling you that something is not right. But in many cases, you can be wrong about that feeling. Like I was wrong about the feeling that because I was different. I didn't know I was different, but I knew that something was different between me and my siblings. But as a young child, you totally don't understand. Your intellect is not working at that time yet. Doubt should be, for you, like pain, is an indication that something is wrong. Doubt is also an indication that something is wrong, but then you have to take control of your intellect and study that doubt. Be honest to yourself. Is this doubt warranted? Is it reasonable to have this doubt? Investigate so that you know where the doubt comes from, and then you decide for yourself whether it is reasonable or not. And if not, then you discard it. And in relation to what you're saying about your developments in yoga, and not being able to connect with other people with that, that means you are one of those people who is super sensitive too. And you have to be careful with people can easily think that you are just a kind of a weird guy, especially when you study real yoga. Because if you study real yoga, you learn all kinds of things, but we learn these kind of things in a systematical way, and so nothing is strange for us anymore. Every new step that we make connects with the previous one, so it makes sense. But if you suddenly start telling people about energy control, then they will think that you are crazy. What energy? Do you have energy? Where is your energy? Can you touch it? Can you see it? That is sometimes how people think, especially people who are very skeptical. But we very slowly but certainly roll into that concept, and you will become familiar with it. And for you, what seems to be normal for you and acceptable, if you start trying to share that with other people, they will declare you crazy. What the hell happened with you? You were such a nice guy up until a year ago, but now did you become a member of a sect or what? So because of this, also you will see, we will start reading the Hatha Yoga Pradipika soon. Many times there is a remark that says this must be kept a secret, like a casket of gems. This must not be unjudiciously revealed. And when we come across that, I will elaborately explain why. But it is not because it is all mysterious and that we should secretly keep it to ourselves because we are special and other people are not. No, it is because, for example, in the past, people were burned at the stake for witchcraft. Why? Because other people didn't understand what they were doing. These days, of course, you will not be burned at the stake anymore. But people will still think you are a little bit strange these days. Because of this, because you keep yourself busy with things that other people don't understand. And there are many people who, although they are intellectually developed, there are many people who, if they don't understand something, it doesn't exist. The witches and the sorcerers of the past were no different from a yogi. They were people who were super sensitive and used that super sensitivity to heal, for example. And in the past, people were superstitious and they were very easily struck with fear. So when you do something that is inexplicable to an irrational mind, they will accuse you of witchcraft and kill you because it's scary. And these kind of things still happen. there are parts of the world where this still happens. In India, for example, in remote villages and places, people are still being killed for witchcraft. And in Africa too. It's still happening. The medicine man of tribes, the medicine man of the past, the seers of the past, they were no different from yogis. They have learned to understand energy and how to use that. And Ryan, you mentioned something about clairvoyance. Everybody has clairvoyance. There's nothing special about that. Only thing is, it is a little bit clouded. But we have moments that we have clairvoyance. We all have this experience that we think of somebody and we want to pick up the phone to call that person, and the telephone is ringing, and you pick up the phone and it's that person. Hey, I was just thinking of it, I was just going to call you and now you call me. That is clairvoyance at work. What happened? That person thought of you. Because that person thinks of you, there is an energy in the ether which you picked up in an unguarded moment. You picked it up, and so subconsciously you started thinking of that person because you picked up that wave of energy. You connected, and so you wanted to pick up the phone, but that person was ahead of you. That is clairvoyance, but it is very dim in most people because we don't have the silence anymore. And it happens subconsciously. But let me tell you that every person, when you continue practicing yoga and you become more and more meditative, which means that you become more and more quiet, you will become more and more clairvoyant too. Because you will, as a result of your increasing sensitivity and silence, you will pick up more energies that are out there, people thinking of you, or situations developing. How many times did you have a deja vu? I had a deja vu about this situation in Fukushima. The whole issue unfolding with the nuclear power plants there. But I only realized it after it happened. Suddenly I had this deja vu and I realized I dreamed about it long time ago. That is clairvoyance, but it happens unconsciously, and so you can't do it. You can use it constructively and do something with it. That would be nice, because then you could prevent the disaster from happening. But that's not the case. But we all have this ability. There's nothing mysterious about it. And as a result of the yoga practice, it will only develop more. That sensitivity and those abilities are called siddhis in yoga. We will come across that word siddhis many times.
What is it? What is the word?
Siddhi. S-I-D-D-H-I. We will come across it, don't worry. S-I-D-D-H-I. And a person who has developed siddhis is called a Siddha. S-I-D-D-H-A. But we will come to that. And when you understand all this, you also understand a little bit more about the yamas and the niyamas that you learn. I told you something about the clock, biological clock. When I meditate and I say to myself, I'm meditating for 45 minutes, 95 out of 100 times I'm pretty accurate in determining when to stop. But you probably think that I do that consciously. That I sit there and I'm consciously thinking, oh, will it be time now or what? Yes, now it must be 45 minutes. No, it doesn't work like that. If you try to do it like that, it will not work. So special abilities like, for example, clairvoyance, or your ability to know what time it is based upon your sensitivity, but not on your thinking. So you just have to surrender. And surrender is the discussion subject for this afternoon. It's very important. You just have to let things happen and soak it up. And in the silence that you have surrendering, you get a signal. Something is steering inside you that tells you. But if you try to do it using your mind, if you try to do it mentally, you are so busy mentally that you cannot feel that little steer inside you that tells you it's time. But that is the point with most people. We are too busy. You have this little steering inside you. Everybody has that little steer, but you ignore it because you're not aware of it. You're too busy to become aware of it. But in the silence, you start to become aware more and more of little signals, little steerings inside you, because that is how you function. You function on those little signals. And to have an example of such a signal, when you get angry, it is not a little signal, it is an explosion of energy. But the little signals I'm talking about are like that explosion, but then on a scale 100,000 times smaller than that explosion when you are angry. That is the big difference, but the concept is the same. It's a steering of energy. And we are too much blunted. We are too much blunted to communicate with those. And that is what I call in the handout the universal consciousness. Because if you develop that sensitivity, you pick up all kinds of energies. And wisdom also is something that you don't learn from a book. Wisdom is something that comes to you in silence. Because your ability to contemplate. Universal knowledge, universal wisdom, you don't have to study for that. That is something you have to receive. So you have to open up yourself to receive that. And that you do by practicing yoga. And the yamas and the niyamas at the very beginning of the course are very important. You will see. In all your developments in yoga, they will be at the basis of your developments. And every time you are lacking development, every time you feel blocked, you will find the answer in the yamas and the niyamas. So read them again and again. Every time when you read them again, you will find new information in them. You will find new insights in them. The yamas and niyamas will continue to be important throughout the rest of your life. And every time when something goes wrong in your life, when you make mistakes, you will also find the answer in the yamas and the niyamas. Either you were violent, or your motive was not pure, or you committed theft, or you committed against truthfulness. But always, if misery occurs again in your life, even when you thought you had everything now straight and everything under control, things do go wrong, and you just sit quietly reflecting on what happened, and you honestly look at the situation, you will come to the conclusion that you have violated one of the yamas again. You can always find the answer. And obviously, going through that process again and again, you become more and more skillful. And that is mastership. Eventually being in control of everything. Are there any questions on this side? This discussion
I was just
is
gonna-
here all the time, but
I just was going to say, you did have in this lesson,
yeah.
you mentioned when starting out on the path of yoga, your choices often go against the odds of other people's ideas
Yes.
of what is right and wrong. It's connected with kind of what Sean was saying. Sometimes that feeling does lead to a feeling of dualism.
Yes, absolutely.
And then I've just wanted to share that. Like sometimes when you study different things, I've studied different things, and then you have to be careful how you share that with other people who are not studying the other things because they don't connect. So I end up finding that it's more comfortable to connect with the people in that kind of community that are studying the types of things they're studying.
Yeah.
And it's more challenging because people start thinking you're a little strange and odd, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? And that's a normal piece of this self-study that you go through, all kinds of self-study.
Yeah. Yeah. You also have to understand, if you are a mathematician and you are in high school, or in university, and you start sharing your insights in mathematics with people who know nothing at all about it, you cannot talk about the things that you are currently learning. You have to go back to the basics. And the same happens with yoga. When you are practicing and studying yoga for years, and you suddenly one day you learn a very interesting technique, new technique, energy control technique maybe, or a kundalini awakening technique, and you talk about that to people who have no experience with yoga, they will declare you crazy. So if ever you want to teach people about yoga or even talk about yoga, you have to start at the beginning of yoga. You cannot just somewhere in the middle of what you have learned just start sharing with people because they won't be able to connect with that. I would, people who are interested in yoga but have no experience at all, I would just say like, yoga, that is really nice. It feels nice. Why don't you try it? You have to try it to feel it, and it makes it makes people calm and peaceful. But you have to start there actually, very, very rudimentary, very basic. You start talking about pranayama and mudras and I don't know what, and they will think you just totally lost it somewhere. But this is something that you will learn by experience, because my experience with this issue is that I found yoga so marvelous that I wanted to share it with everybody. I became very compassionate because of my increasing, more and more developing sensitivity. So you start thinking that everybody needs yoga because it will help them as much as it helped you. You quickly give up that idea. But you have to bump your nose several times into the wall to find out that people really don't care. They don't care. They have their own interests. And they have not felt what you have felt practicing your yoga. And trying to tell them about it doesn't work. They have to feel it themselves before you can convince them. But so you have to learn this by experience, because in your enthusiasm about what you experience, you do want to share it. Because you know how much it can help your mom or your sister or your friend. You know how much it could help them. But it can only help them if they open up to it, and then they just think that you are crazy. It's not going to work, ever. So try it out and you will see. You have to try it out. Like a little child, In the past, these days we have central heat. In the past we had petrol heaters and coal heaters. And children are totally intrigued by the flames in the stove. And all children do this. They want to touch the heater, the stove. And all parents say, no, don't touch it, dangerous. And the more you say don't touch it, the more the child wants to touch it. And so one moment you turn around and you're in the kitchen cutting vegetables and it has to happen. Every child has to do that. You have to learn by mistake. The child, the moment that you turn around, have to burn. And in the same way you have to burn your finger too, trying to tell people about yoga, and then you draw the conclusion that it doesn't work. That's human. Only thing you should not do is persist, because you will damage yourself. And that is why the holy books constantly say you have to keep this secret. You will come to that. Let's have a 5-minute break. We go on with Tapas.